Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. How's everybody doing? We just need a few minutes for Mr. Mott to come grace us with his presence, and we'll be talking about false flags. Boy, they've been going on since the beginning of time, huh, John? Now that you think about it.
No kidding. It's part of the game. One big game of capture the flag.
I have an insane story. I don't want to say it in space because it's recorded, but I'll tell everybody later. It's insane. How are you doing, Mr. Mott's secretary? I don't want to call it
Great,
rude.
great. You say my name. Say it.
It's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I use my real name. I don't care. The men in black will be knocking on my door any day now.
mm.
I'm teasing. Mr. Mott, how are you? I just sent you Mike. I hope you're gonna play our song today. Let's see. Okay. Let me know if that came through. Hello, hello.
Good day, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and down under it's like good very night. Yeah, of course, of course. Let's warm up with some, you know, some fine music. And guys, please retweet this. Sorry, repost this space. That would be great. We are under supervision. We are under Elon's limited reach crew, I think. At least it seems to be like that. I hope that there are some nice people coming in today. Of course, it's going to be a little bit like Bombadil radio, but that's how we do it. So, Mr. Matthews, is everything okay with you?
Everything is fantastic. I was just talking to somebody last night about that, Mont. It's funny. I hear some of these. I call them the talking heads, but these big shill accounts that they're crying in their milk about how, oh my gosh, I only got 10,000 shares. I'm like, oh my god, are you kidding me? Like, I would like to get 10 views sometimes on some of the things I post, let alone 10,000 shares. Like, are you kidding me? These people are so out of reach, Mott. They have no idea, like, the reality of what being censored truly is. It's unreal.
Yeah, you know, I have sort of sorted them out, and I can see now, even in Patriots space, we are talking openly and adequately about the Wallenbergs, the Warburgs, the Morgans, the Schiffs, and the Rockefellers, and so on. So you find the wholehearted people. The others, okay, there are some that might, be just lurking around the corner. They know when to make their move, whatever. of course, the main public cannot jump into these conclusions, these, well, let's call it intricate webs, but many spaces are describing it. They get as far as they are sort of blaming the use. And sometimes they say, well, it's not always the use, it's a Zionist, but there is somebody above them, but we really don't know who it is. And, you know, so overall, things are sort of sliding away in the right direction, I would say, at least on X, because that's the reference frame. This is the news now. We are the news. So we have to see where the big accounts are going. I mean, we stand firmly on history, but we can also see what the players in history, where they are today, and who they have put under their spell, aka the Nobel Prize, the Polar Prize, or, you know, whatever, honorary US citizen. so and Hollywoodified, of course, as per usual, you know, Oppenheimer, the false history of the nuclear weapon. And they know it. So it's really fun, you know, when they are leaving out the true background, the reasoning, key bono, who benefited, and so on. So, well, guys, please repost the space. We are just warming up. And by doing that, before entering the world of Tolkien and Bombadil and all of these nefarious false flags, we will play the song so you can shake around a little bit. The only song written by Desperado. You can find it on Spotify and other medias as well, YouTube. I will put out the links. Written especially for X Spaces and for what we are doing. So I'm very honored by Mr. Desperado doing this. And let's see if we can
Let's rock
get
and
the
roll,
song.
Mott.
Let's rock and roll to the purple pill. That is fantastic stuff, isn't it? I'm so honored. I truly am. To the core of my heart, I really am honored. Let's hope that the sound machine is working properly. We will know in about 2 seconds. Here we go.
Tom Tom Bombadil, he delivers news with a chill. All the updates in a purple pill for folks to get their fill. Morning starts with his voice. He makes the world rejoice. Doesn't complicate the choice. His words so precise. My Bombadil, gonna make you feel the thrill. Every headline, every spill, he delivers with a chill. People gather round and listen. Every bit of news he's dishing. Gives the facts without omission. Keeps it simple, no division. Radio waves he controls. News and stories, heart and soul. Purple pill makes us whole. Tom's the one who holds the goal. My Bombadil, gonna make you feel the thrill. Every headline, every spill, he delivers with a chill. Radio waves he controls. News and stories, heart and soul. Purple pill makes us whole. Tom's the one who holds the goal. My Bombadil, gonna make you feel the thrill. Every headline, every spill, he delivers with a chill.
I have to keep checking and make sure I'm muted because I'm singing along. And I can't hold the
Sing
note.
along. Yeah, just sing along. We should have like when you play music, everybody should get a mic, like 200 mics, but boom out while you're playing, and everybody could sing along. That would be great, wouldn't it? I think Elon has to have that request just for music, so just for a sing along mic thrown out so everybody get a mic.
Good idea, Mott. Very good. Good idea.
I can see that we have Guru in here today. Welcome, Guru. I know that it's strange time, your time, but very nice to see you, sir. So grab a mic if you can. If you don't, it doesn't really matter. So and please, guys, when we are playing and so on, use your heart symbol, because if we throw out a lot of hearts, this space will be jumped up in the flow for people that we know and so on. That's how the algos works. So with that said, please repost. We are, not the largest space around, but we have Guru in. How is it, sir? Welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome,
very well.
Guru.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, hi Trish, hi Mike, hi John, the other co-host, Mr. Mo. I can't see the rest of it there, but yeah, how you going, guys? It's a little bit earlier. I've been up for a while, but it's 6 a.m. over here in Australia, 6:30 a.m. now. But yeah, happy to come in and have a listen, Mike. You've always got your Tisha's always got a great space, mate, with great info. So yeah, I'm here for a little while, guys. So yeah, I'll enjoy the conversation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we could actually talk about, well, we have a couple of battles where Australians have been involved, where there have been some, let's say, minor false flags, tactics and so on. We could, but that is sort of far-fetched. But we can do that in one of the Australian spaces. We have the connection with the Five Eyes countries is it's obvious. The history of Australia. It looks like the removal of guns, all the suppression. Australia has been hit very, very hard by the oligarchy, and
They
you can
took
see
the
that.
guns from Australia. Australia has no guns.
Yeah, same as in Sweden. It's illegal for ordinary citizen to wear a gun. They don't have a Second Amendment. Done long time ago.
We had a 1996, Tish. We had a false flag down in a place called Tasmania, a little island off the bottom of Australia. And we had a guy called Martin Bryant who was set up as a little toy boy who took the fall. It was a CIA operation. And that's what removed our guns, Tish. 1996, mate, false flag. And then everyone just handed them in. We all got sucked in. So that's when we lost all our guns, though.
Wow. And you see what they're doing here. They're trying to do the same. They keep doing it. I'm sorry, Mott.
No problem. Yeah. Guru is, of course, 100% on the spot, and it's a copy paste of Mordor. We are always the first. First max vaccination, first central bank, first fucking everything. The polio too. the ones that, you know, they halt the war with Netanyahu, who says it's the deep state, meaning more or less the Wallenbergs and company running Israel. Natural enough, you know, the Iron Dome, it runs on Ericsson stuff. We've gone through that. We can check my article from the 7th of October that actually gained some traction. It's almost 100,000 reads now. So it's I'm amazed by that. That is like, but it's factual. I'm not judging. I'm just spitting it out. And the follow-up from people below is very polite, mainly at least, and there are also some good stuff there as well. So removing the guns is, of course, even so. Look here, if you have if you're in the National Guard, or with U.S. perspective, if you're in the National Guard, you can. That's like sort of the civil defense, the homeland defense. It's built up around the same circumstances that you know the Swedes have been very good at, or the oligarchy of Sweden have been very good at this thing with war back in the day, and now it's more war and tech. But the numbers here are very strange. This is why we have gone through this, you know, these old battles between Sweden and Denmark, and of course our rock star of central banking, Axel Oxenstierna, who actually sort of conquered Europe, the critical parts of the Europe and the banking system. And then we went to Poltava, which came up now when we had this big ballistic missile attack in Poltava, which is, you know, quite close to the European countries. It's not far away at all from Estonia, Litau, and these countries. So that there is a big historical event in 1709 when the fourth king after Oxenstierna, fourth. He loses the third. He loses the territorial part of when the Swedes conquered Europe, and this is at the same time as the Swedish, British Crown, East India Company is making life a hell for the people in the US. So this all happens during this, let's say the 17th and the 18th century. All of these things are happening simultaneously, and the founding fathers, they go all in getting rid of the East India Company. It's not a war against the crown as such. It is the East India Company that is the powerhouse. The crown in itself is not. They simply don't have the means to be that powerful, because the East India Company is by far, at this moment in time, the largest military operator, private military operator ever seen, ever. If we sort of say that the US and the NATO is not a private military organization, you could claim that because the military industrial complex is actually running it, but that is not official, of course. So you cannot really say it's a. Back in the day, they were not as shy, you know, they were not hiding behind the proxy walls and so on. So that is a larger operation, but it's not the country. It's not the people of a country. Well, there are some people living in the country that have been, you know, tricked into doing their aiding and abetting, of the military industrial complex. And the big bosses, the 3-star, the 4-star, some of them are corrupt, some of them are not, and we will soon see who is who in that perspective. Anyways, getting into the false flags, we have this is a sort of repetition. So we have talked a lot about false flags. I have just mentioned, we had with some speakers a short discussion a couple of spaces ago about the largest false flag ever. So we start with the big one that has formed our lives and our grandparents and their grandparents' lives. And that is the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Because these are, from any kind of military perspective and so forth, you can run down that path forever. There are 1,000 arguments against one in all aspects. It's not necessary. It's not needed. It's rushed through the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project is provided with what they need to be able to provide, to design, to make a functional nuclear weapons by the Swedish oligarchs. Full stop. And this is not a claim. This is historical fact. Any fact checker, any liberal, well, any crying woke, whatever, fucktards, excuse my language, this is a fact. It's just not presented that way. But this is a fact. So we have Lise Meitner sitting at the Wallenberg factory called Ljungaverk, designing the trigger mechanism, and also the theory behind it. She and her her aides and other scientists, they have a head start in this, because it happens to be like this. The guy who discovered uranium and the power of it, he happened to be a business partner as well. This is one of the most brilliant minds we know of. And of course, he is, his legacy is suppressed everywhere but in Norway, because Norway is a small country, and he is a brilliant scientist, but he is also a business partner of the Wallenbergs in the Norsk Hydro, and his name is Christian Bekeland. You can check him out. He, just as many others, dies in a hotel room all alone in Tokyo with a gun on his bedside table by an overdose, and all his research just disappears. It just so happens that the special envoy for the Asian trade, with China and Japan and so on, just happened to be one of the Wallenbergs, and he just happened to be in Tokyo at that time. I would not say that they are involved in any way at all. However, 11 years prior to this, Birkeland writes a very serious letter to the Wallenbergs and asking them for funding for this marvelous energy source that could be very good for the humanity and so on. He's on the other side of this. Birkeland is a humanitarian. And they declined. Boom. And 11 years later, he dies, his research going missing, and just by accident, it happens to pop up in the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. They suddenly are the experts some few years after. And the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute is actually, the IG Farben. And believe it or not, it's actually financed through just that, so it don't get too obvious, by the Rockefellers. Prescott Bush is also in on a corner. I'm not sure if he's specifically putting in his private money into the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, but he's putting it into the Third Reich project before the little guy with the puppet guy is put in place. Besides that, another person had to die. His name is Ivar Kreuger. You should check him out. He was the contrary of the Wallenbergs, even if he was doing some business with them. He had to die. That was actually stated by a few people that actually knew about the plans, that spoke openly about them, and they just said, well, there are three things that have to happen, and one of them is that Ivar Kreuger has to be gone, so to speak. And this all happens in the 30s, and then if we fast forward, Lise Meitner, she sits at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute together with Otto Hahn. Otto Hahn will, of course, receive the Merchant of Debt Prize, which is the Nobel Prize, as we probably most of us know by now. But anyways, just repeating this. So their science will move to Sweden to be in a safe, they're the only country that actually benefited from the Second World War. Believe it or not. Strange, isn't it? And Sweden is not a neutral country. Switzerland is the only country, but Switzerland is in sort of in the center of Europe. Well, not in precisely the center, but anyways, they signed. So they are neutral. They are obliged to be neutral because they signed with all other countries. Sweden were sort of tagging along and getting the guise of being neutral, but they have never been neutral in the circumstances. And this is after the Napoleon Wars. So this is 1814, 1815 when these treaties are signed, because they said, we need a couple of neutral countries that could handle all the banking, the repayments, and so reparations, and so forth. And Switzerland is signing off on this. Sweden is just hanging along, not signing, but given the role of this, as a public statement. So the nuclear project, there are actually some of the colleagues of Meitner and Hahn is moved already in the mid-30s to the US. And they're already working with this in the US, partially at least, before the Manhattan Project is official. So, but in order to do this, you need the so-called heavy water, you need to have centrifugal equipment and strange things. And here comes a twist. So Eugen Schwab, that is Klaus Schwab's father, he is the guy at Asia Wish that is providing this rotational equipment. So he is a business partner within the Nazi framework, within the IG Farben framework, to the Wallenbergs. So he is the provider of those kind of equipment. It's his equipment. If you have heard this amazing story about this Norwegian British joint venture to it's like a attack on where the Nazis are making the heavy water in Raukan in Norway, which has the natural circumstances for doing this, just as they had in Sweden. So Sweden is doing heavy water, creating heavy water, and so on. So is also Norway, but the Nazis occupied Norway. So this epic that they made lots of movies about it and so on. You know, they are skiing in the winter storms to get to these facilities, to this factory, and it is a big deal actually. So in a way, and they succeed in blowing it up. So the equipment that is standing there is actually coming from the same source, and that is Schwab's father. So and Schwab will be the protege of Kissinger, which is, you know, so he's true and true. You know, he's kept in well, he's playing his part. He's doing his part. And the true founder of the WEF, he's actually dead just recently, a year ago or so. He's an oil magnate, sort of married into not married into, but in relation to the Wallenberg family. His name is Adolf H. Lundin, which is like quite funny. He was very, always very hard on that the H should be spelled out when he was addressed. So Adolf H, like in Hitler. No coincidence there, I think. Well, he's an oil and diamond business. He's can have a large Canadian or still has, the company still lives on, and they are actually on trial for genocide in Africa, in Sudan right now. It's a long trial, but that company might face some real consequences. We have seen that just recently. One of the Swedish bank doing their part in the largest money laundering scandal ever. Actually, the CEO active during that period of time, she actually was sentenced to 1 year and 3 months in jail. It will be maybe go up to the High Court or the Supreme Court of Sweden, but this is the first time ever one of these banksters actually got this is a slap on the wrist compared to we are talking $2,000 million, something like that. Not $1 trillion or so, but you know, quite a lot of money they laundered to their puppet state of Estonia, Lithuania, and Lithuania. What did I say? Estonia, Estland, Letland, Estonia, Lithuania, and well, I can't. I lost my track there, my train of thought. But the 3 Baltic states, at least, where Knut and Alice Wallenberg's funds are providing scholarship for everybody at the universities, free of charge university. The Wallenbergs pay all of them. So it's quite 95%, something like that. So everybody that goes to the university to be a banker or a lawyer or whatever, we will be already from the get-go in the pulse of this. Anyways, so we have the nuclear weapon provided by the oligarchy, and we have a emperor, Hirohito, who straight off his 18th birthday, when he should be the heir to the emperor throne of the emperor of Japan. Straight off his 18th birthday, he goes to Sweden and receives his Seraphimer order, which is a very fancy thing, from the Swedish royals, puppet royals, of course. And he refuses to capitulate. Though his military advisors, his Secretary of Defense or whatever, equivalent to that, they urge him to capitulate because the war is lost for a long time before, maybe a year, half a year, maybe something in between there. The war is lost. The US, the Allied, they have won it long time ago. So he's just dragging out until Fat Boy and Slim Man is ready for action. And they are ready for action to create something. And what they will be creating is the Cold War. And that is by far as a false flag. In one day, several hundreds of thousands civilians will be wiped out to create a narrative, a spin, a smoke and mirror foundation for the oligarchy. So this is, according to me, to be a false flag, and probably the most nefarious and the largest one ever. Even if there are so many others, but this is the big one. This is the mother lode, so to speak, of false flags. Seldom talked about in that perspective, of course, because that gives a pretty nefarious picture of it. And we've been living in this fear. Our grandparents, our parents, our grandparents have been living in the fear of these nuclear weapons. And of course, of the big bad Soviet Union, which is not existing anymore. And now Russia is sort of forced into another Cold War. But this time around, I think the Cold War is like BRICS countries, many of them. So this time the Cold War is not so cold. It's actually boiling hot, because we have 159 countries that is saying fuck you to the current nefarious central banking system. And they are joining the BRICS system. So this is a very big change. A very big change. And the more countries that will jump onto that train, the closer we are getting into a, let's call it a new hot cold war, because it's, and the danger we can see here is that if the sub-oligarchs that gets desperate enough, because this is all about the banking. At the end of the day, it's about the banking. And as you guys that have listened into these spaces before, you quickly realize that this central banking system, where it was grown from, the history of it, and now we can see it crumbling under the weight of its own Ponzi scheme, and the large chunk of the world knows this, and they said, we are not going to participate in this system anymore. We have seen all the errors, so we will try. I think they are trying, as far as I see it, to create another multipolar instead of unipolar world financial system. So this is the epical times we are living in, and the largest false flag is a very, very big part of it, because it have shaped the way of how we see the world, how we interact with each other, and so on. The young generations now, they are more chill about this. They are seeing things for what they are. They are not, as indoctrinated as we, our parents, grandparents have been. Us meaning, I can only talk for myself, but being a boomer, we've been heavy hit by this, and of course our parents as well. The ones that grew up during the late 40s, the 50s, the 60s. If you were young then, this was shaping the societies in the West in a large way. And coming from that perspective, the other false flags are equally important. They are not as tragically deadly in head count, but they are tragically enough anyways, because people's lives are not considered. Oh, we have hands. Sorry, I have Tish. You need to kick me if I'm going too long. Rob, welcome.
Rob, welcome, Rob.
Hi. How you guys doing today?
Very good.
Good.
Do you have a comment or a question?
Yeah. So I guess I consider myself an old fart too, because I'm a '60s baby, like '60s baby. But a couple of things that I've always wondered and I could never get any answers, and that is, with all that has happened, during my lifetime, where we've had, the assassination of, you know, uh, two political figures. We've had the assassination of, Malcolm X, and Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, we had a gentleman that ran for presidency in 1993, and he was told that if he didn't, back out of the election, that they were going to kill his daughter. And I mean, I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that these two powerful entities, the Republican side of politics and then the Democratic side of politics, and I'm thinking that it's probably time to hoe out all of those people that are in there and have, new fresh blood come in. Because, you know, the two voting party system, it doesn't work because the people are forced to choose between the lesser of two evils, and, both sides are evil. And the second thing is, I'm wondering this other gentleman here, he brought up, the stuff that's going on, back in the 40s and the 30s and stuff like that. But man, oh man, I think it goes back a lot longer than that.
Oh, sure.
A lot of people have been harmed. A lot of people have died for unnecessary things, and we still keep, we keep on doing these things. And it's not just in the United States. There's other things that go around the world that I don't know about that are probably wrong. But why all the anger? Why can't we get along? And I wanted just to get that out, and I got to catch my breath here. Thank you.
I think it's deeper than the two political parties. Would you agree, Mott?
Yeah, I would agree, and thank you, Rob, for sharing. To simplify, Rob, just getting back, you have the Democrats, you have the Republicans. I would say that is mainly theater, because they do not control the issuing of currency. That is the oligarchy that controls that. So, with that said, if you control the issuing, the flow of currency, actually that is quite funny, because you have the banks, as in the river banks, and you have the flow of the current currency running through the banks or by the banks. Words are, of course, important. And as you hear, English is not my native language, but I try as good as I can to catch it. English is actually made, evolved from Old Norse, that is Norwegian. So we are back to Birkeland again, which is Viking language, more or less. And that is not so strange, because the guys who took over after Romans were the Vikings. That's around year 300. Then they had a little bit of a lapse, and then they came back strong in the year of 1066. And since that day on, what we call the British crown, I call the Viking crown, because it's Viking all the way. William the Conqueror is in straight line from a Viking called Rollo, and now, Tish, we have to have this name settled. Gange Ralph, or Gange Rolf in Norwegian, which means wandering Rolf. The saying from the Norwegian side is that he was so big that no horse could carry him. So that's a big Viking, probably exaggerated, but anyways. The Danish claims that he is a Danish Viking, and they've been fighting about this forth and back. The DNA tests have shown that it's much more likely that he's from the Danish side of it. And believe it or not, then it's kind of Sweden and Denmark is the same at that point in time, the southern parts where I'm actually now. So in this case, this Rollo, or Richard of Normandy, is the sort of the grand old man of the British crown. In the later 18th century, it changes a little bit, but then the crowns of Saxe, Coburg, Gotha, and so on, they are merged together. So it's one crown from that perspective. As now, it's still the same. It's just one crown. They are intermarried, and everybody is fucking cousins. Sort of. They even had some problems with that in the British crowns. getting some kids that they had to stow away and so forth. So we are not fighting the crowns. The crowns are puppets. We are fighting the good old oligarchy. And in this case, the bloodline goes to Elizabeth I. That's a straight bloodline. And she is, as Rob is saying, it goes way further behind that. Yes, it does. So in the year 1600, Rob, the Elizabeth I, who is a Viking queen, she grants the East India Company. And the East India Company is working almost exactly out of the Viking playbook. They just scale it up from Europe, which were pretty much Viking at that, a bit earlier on. They were everywhere, and they married in, they stuck into the society, to the fabric of society, making alliances and so on. But they always kept, the priority to their heritage back home, so to speak. So they were very good at being the deeply entrenched enemy that Mr. Trump is talking about. And the Swedish heritage in the US is not small, since Sweden is the sixth country, believe it or not, with 1.6 million Swedes moving between 1870 to around 1900. Also past that, they stopped counting at somewhere 1930, something like that. They stopped counting that immigration wave, so to speak. So at a very unpopulated US, that is a whole lot of people. Big countries as Russia, that have closer to, but anyways, and France, Germany, and so forth. They have a couple of millions going over there. But for a small country that lost a quarter of its total, the reasons behind that could be several, so I will not go into that. That's Swedish local history. It doesn't really matter. But there are loads of Swedes compared to the numbers. So therefore we have lots of Swedish ancestry, of course, in the US. And they pop up sort of everywhere, especially in the governments and in the NGOs. And then you have the other allies, as Soros is picked up by these guys. You have Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum. Yeah, he's picked up by this, they know his father, and, Kissinger is one of their friends. The Bush family is, of course, straight up their friends. Rumsfeld has been working for them, selling nuclear technology to North Korea, and so on and so forth. And that will lead us to the next false flag, and that will be Pearl Harbor. So what is the smallest denominator for that? Well, I would say that one of the instigators, one of the key persons, maybe even the inspiration to James Bond movies and books, he is called Sempill. His name is Sempill. He is a key factor in the Pearl Harbor setup. Winston Churchill will be the first honorary citizen of the United States of America. though he was very aware and participating in the bombing of Pearl Harbor, as some American people as well. So that is the next false flag. And this Sempil, he is actually receiving the same grants or order as, almost the same grant and order as Hirohito. So he's also getting, after the World War, he's getting the same kind of treatment from the big oligarchs of the Nordic country we call Sweden. And we also call it Mordor, or Mordor is actually more or less Stockholm. And then we go to the nefarious Stockholm bureaucracy, which have hit the US pretty hard. That's your overgrown, overreaching government. That is Stockholm bureaucracy. Shaped, designed in the late 17th century or in the mid 17th century by no one, no less than our rock star of central banking, Axel Oxenstierna. Amazing stuff, isn't it? And by the way, he also, actually created Delaware, which was called New Sweden, and then obviously that was not really suitable, so they renamed it to Delaware, made the Dutch go, which they were cooperating with already, with inside the newly formed, you could say, military industrial complex of the 1600s, which is the East India Company and the supply of it. So we have Swedish cannons, we have Dutch designed ships, we have the UK building ships, and also having educational facilities, universities, and so on and so forth for the East India employees, the nefarious privateers. So they muster up the largest ever force, 260 at the peak of it, 260,000 well-trained professional soldiers and a couple of hundred of the fastest, most well-equipped, unbeatable at that time warships. And that's a private company, Viking style, and they take over more or less what they want throughout the the whole world, actually. So they do the cherry picking, and they run the opium trade. They actually, the American traders, the East India Company goes after them at a certain point, and they actually takes 300 of the merchant ships. They just parked them. They put a stop to the American tradesman that is trying to, trade freely, and it is, of course, the East India Company has, like, I don't know, I don't have that number actually, but if they have like 100, 200 of the fastest sailing, most well equipped, with the Swedish cannons, the lightweight cannons is very important here. So the technology, simply with lightweight cannons, is very important because you can carry more firepower, and you will be the winner of any kind of naval battles, which will be shown. So at this point in time, Delaware is shaping, and Delaware is actually the state, the first state to be a state and recognized as a state with the governments, orderly, blah 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 blah, all of this, and they will also be the tax haven, the legal entity where all the Fortune 100, or maybe even all the Fortune 500, and almost all other foreign investors will put their mailbox in Fort Christina, or Wilmington, as it's called today. So those roots goes really, really, really long way back, and I hope that Rob is. I see him dropping out. Well, anyways, so that's the background story of that. So how could these few oligarchs from a very small country be able to do this? Well, they were very good at the information. And that will lead us to another false flag, and that will be the Bay of Tonkin. And that will be Norwegians, because Norwegians were running the torpedo boats of the nasty class. That is the instigator moves to create the Bay of Tonkin, Bay of Tonkin incident, which is a false flag, and that is recognized by everybody as a false flag. That kicks off the Vietnam War. But this is the Kissinger War. Kissinger is moving in all kinds of equipment. The helicopter warfare is a new concept. They are doing everything. And the US soldiers are dying in large numbers at the average age of 19. See if I can find that song. It's actually written a song about it. It's a pretty good one, actually. See if I can find it. So the reason for the large casualties in this war is that the enemy, well, everybody is enemy here, but the other side of this is the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong. And they actually have access to the communications. They can listen in to what the American forces are believing are coded messages. But their enemy, their opposition that they are waging war against, can listen into it. And that is, of course, a hell of a advantage, isn't it? And this is the cryptograph, the Cry-AG machines. This was discovered by an honorable man called William Odom at the NSA. So in the mid-80s, he calls up Robert Keegan, the CIA deputy director, and he has one question only. Who told the Kong about Cry-AG? He of course doesn't get a good answer, and this is after that the lid is blown on the Five Eyes countries listening into devices. And these are the creation and controlled by the Ericsson company, by the Wallenbergs, by the ASEA company, together, of course, with in cohorts with the Five Eyes countries. That means more or less the NSA, the CIA, the Australians, the New Zealanders, Canada, and the United Kingdom. So you can see easily that where this is all sort of where they already are entrenched, and they don't get less entrenched. And the
Mott,
thing about
Peter has his hand up when you have a moment.
sorry. Yes, go ahead, Peter.
It's no problem. I just like to ask you a question there. But the general propaganda or the general story there, wasn't it? I haven't seen so many documentaries, but wasn't it something with that they were so good with their tunnel system and they were you know, they were living in such a small spaces, and they have a vast tunnel system, almost like so they can pop up everywhere. But now it makes much more sense when you hear that they could actually listen in and had an information advantage
Yeah,
over the Americans.
yeah, they had the information advantage. For sure, they did not have weaponry advantage. The numbers, of course, they were in advantage, and they were fighting for, that it's on their home turf.
Yeah. And
So,
and
so
and
it's
what? Oh, sorry.
so it is a classical military industrial. Actually, some good people in the US is trying to stop this war, but then Kissinger just steps in and gets them out of the way, so to speak, because they want to test new weapons. They want to test, they want to make the military industrial complex needs to get some old stuff out of the storage and test some new stuff. So Kissinger goes all in. He is the kingpin of Pentagon in this case. And of course, his good friend Ingmar Dörfer from Sweden, the gray one, just like Per Jacobson running the Bank for International Settlements from the background, with McKittrick and others in the foreground visible. So classic.
I was also I was also wondering because I don't know in America who was pushing it with Kissinger, but I heard of that Christopher Hitchens wrote a book about the case against Kissinger, and it's on my list to buy. But I don't know who else tried to oppose Kissinger in America. But before, I also wanted to say that the propaganda or the media have been pushing totally different story, of course, with this Vietnam War, and they have said nothing about that information advantage or something, and they give so many other reasons to why they were so successful. So it's really annoying when you find out later that it was
Just because of this, it was very, very important for when the scandal of the Five Eyes countries and, of course, Soren's Eye of Sweden, of the Swedish oligarchy, are listening in to 120 countries, and a brilliant Egyptian secret service, he discovers the back door into the machine. They thought no one would recognize this, but he discovers it. The lid blows onto what is described as the largest intelligence community scandal ever. And it's very important that and this is all blamed on the CIA and on the BND, the German intelligence services, which is and that is a strange story in itself, because it's Reinhard Gehlen that is running the BND, and he was a Nazi, and he was circulated to the US and back again, to be the boss of the BND. You won't, if you look at the NATO commanders, and if you look at the beginning of the EU project, it's the same bunch that were running in the Third Reich. It's like, come on. It's so fucking obvious. Oh, sorry, me swearing. It's really, really obvious when you just look at the players and looking at the Bush administration with Rumsfeld and the Wallenbergs. They are cozy with each other. These are guys hanging out, playing golf, eating dinners, and so on. Not showing it, but they are doing it. This is like, selling nuclear to Iran, to North Korea, nuclear capabilities. I mean, there's no end to it. And of course, Israel is, circulating all of this. Israel has nukes as well. And just a few weeks ago, Tish, Blinken discovers that Iran has the possibility of nuclear weapons. We just, hey, come on, Blinken, you should know this. We talked about it before. I said the next move is that they're gonna spin Iran and nuclear weapons, and suddenly Blinken says, "Oh, Iran might have nuclear weapons." Come on, dumb fuck. The ABB, the Wallenbergs provided them with that technology so long ago, and it's not that complicated nowadays to make
And
a nuclear.
he admitted it, correct, Mott? Like, didn't he admit it in front of
Yeah, yeah,
everyone? Yeah,
yeah. So
insane.
it's like, yeah, insane. We are talking about it in the space, and while the space is ongoing, Blinken posts Iran got nukes. It's like, what the fuck?
What the
So
fuck?
I am in that kind of mood today. I don't know why I'm swearing.
Let it rip, Mott. Let it rip.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit frustrated sometimes. So anyways,
Well, it's so stupid. Some of the stuff is so stupid. Like, it's dumbfounding to believe. Like, as much as we try and look back at one point in time when we didn't know what we didn't know, it's just like, I'm like, the old saying, like, not all sense is common when it comes to common sense? It's like, wow, that is shining brighter than ever right now, that some people are just so incredibly indoctrinated. They are lulled to the poppy field that the Wizard of Oz wanted them to go to, and they're just donezo. They're just so out of it. It's unbelievable.
yeah, and talking about poppy fields, the poppy fields of Flanders. Oh my God, that poem. And they read it, and they read that poem in the UK. The Crown in UK uses that poem, the poppy fields of Flanders, and that is World War One, described by a Canadian soldier, and it's so it. Well, I will read it to you guys
Just say
someday.
it, Mott. Just say it. You're gonna say the F
Yeah,
bomb.
yeah. No.
Well, that's when the original Wizard of Oz was created too, right around that same time frame.
Yeah. They are referencing that. And talking about false flags. Look here. Franz Ferdinand is getting killed, and the secretary, please find the article about. I forgot his name. He's killed by a very young assassinator with pure luck. The car where they failed. They could not get close enough. There are like 2-3 assassins. They should get close enough, and they should kill Franz Ferdinand for whatever it's. They are Serbian by birth, and just by accident, the coincidence, the luck strikes again. These guys are sitting down at the coffee shop, and I've just said we cannot get close enough. We cannot do this, so we call it today. We do it another day, and just by accident, the open car with Franz Ferdinand stops at the cafe. So the guy simply steps up for the coffee table outside boardwalk coffee thing, and just shoots him and the wifey, and it's terrible. But I should not laugh. But and this is still sort of the lonely assassin NGO kind of a strange organization. He doesn't really know what he's been up to or whatever, but anyways, this kill and Franz Ferdinand is not even really important. He's sort of royalty and so on, but he's not that important. He's not the call out for a world war where Germany is bound to lose. It's settled already even before the first shot is in the war. That is a false flag. Fortunately, not so many people called it a day in the false flag, but the war in itself, 21 minimum million people in the nastiest kind of warfare ever. It is like, I don't know, we have seen some of it in movies and so on, but to describe the sheer madness of the trench warfare is like, it's unimaginable. And by the
Mott,
way,
did that kick off World War II? Am I correct?
World War One,
Well, I'm sorry, World War One. Yes.
yes, that kicked off that. It was, it is a false flag. You don't go to war because an assassination of one. You don't. So it's not even a good one. It's a bad one, and still, you know. But if you have the control over the newspapers and the governments and the money printing, and you have the power of the banks, and all wars are banksters' wars, so they get that one. To be really, if we want to simplify it really, really much, the purpose of the First World War, one of many, of course, but one of the primary purposes of the First World War is to create the bank for international settlements in Switzerland, the neutral one. That is one of the main purposes. One of the others will lead us to today's tunnels in Gaza, the warfare in Gaza, the informational warfare that goes on in parallel. Horrible situation there. But it might also wake some people up. So there is a positive side of it as well, in the middle of the.
So, Matt, can I ask you a question quick?
Yes.
So, in your opinion, you've kind of highlighted a lot of the false flag efforts, which you could technically look at it as an underlying element to a possible point in time, which was the inception point of all the false flags of the modern 20th century. So I guess what I'm getting at is, in your opinion, what would be the root cause event or situation? I have a thought as well, because anything after that point in time, it seemed like it opened the door to a lot of things. But what would be the point in time in history that really, allowed a lot of this? Not mass. I mean, you could say the East India Company, but let's say after the inception of the Declaration of Independence, for instance, that sort of thing. So what do you think took place that allowed all of these false flag events to transpire?
The printing press.
Really? Okay. That's interesting. All right. Wow. That's incredibly out of the box thinking there.
Oh,
All right. I was thinking like
but Gutenberg,
I was thinking like 1871, you know, because essentially the non-ratified 14th Amendment, you know, took a lot of the power away from people, yes, but it also opened the door to a lot of these corporate elements. That's just my opinion, right? So that's kind of where I was going with that. But you know, what do you think? Or maybe what event? Maybe there was an event that kind of kicked it off, which kind of, you know, created another separate sort of element. You know, like 9/11 took place, and then what happened? The Patriot Act. But you know, prior to that, what are your thoughts on what kind of happened to open the door for all of these things?
well, it's a learning curve, of course, for the oligarchy as well. You know, if it has not happened, they don't know what will happen. So I say you asked for the root cause, and I say the printing press, and by that I mean the control of information. But the means to control people, that actually will occur. And this is why the Second World War will turn out to be, and the Nazi thing, the way of how to preform, as in theater, preform. So what happens is that, and now we might slip into the Russian Revolution, but I think we will avoid that. That will be discussed in another space, because suddenly people in a lot of other spaces are discovering actually this kind of Bolshevik thing is. They are getting into it, that this is the same kind of modus operandi that is happening today, which is quite. I've listened to a big space today with a couple of thousand. I should grab the mic and it was not suitable or whatever. But anyways, so Stalin, who is very acquainted with, for you guys that is hanging around here, he's very acquainted with the Nobel family, because in the oil metropole, the Nobel family are the kings, the merchant kings of Russia. The Nobel family, as in the Nobel Prize, as in the merchant of that, this is the Wallenberg. They are in cohorts with the Wallenbergs. This is a weaponry. They have been creating weapons, very creative. They are the first designers of the sea mines, the mines that you put out in sea to do blockades and blow ships up and so on. That's these guys. And they are very involved in Russia from early 1900th century, even before that actually, but they are very actively in Russia and doing weaponry and other industry stuff. So Stalin, he knows these guys pretty well. And he's, of course, involved in the Russian Revolution. But Lenin, who is Swedish heritage, very close Swedish heritage, hired in to do that. And the Bolsheviks, they are what they are. They are a certain kind of... Stalin is not one of them, though, but he's a very active social democrat, Bolshevik, you know. So, and he maneuvers out, I guess, Lenin and Trotsky as well. Trotsky is actually hanging around with the Rockefellers, just as you know, in between, because he's the point man. He tries to do the revolution in 1905. He fails. They have a big meeting in Stockholm, in Mordor, underneath Soren's eye. Actually, Actually, yeah, just a few hundred meters from the Soren's eye, seen out of a Tolkien perspective. You can't make shit like this up, Tish. You cannot make it up. So, anyways, Stalin, when he goes all in, and he does really nefarious stuff, but he is also trying to arm his country because he knows what is coming. He knows these oligarchs. He understands the First World War. He understands what will be in the Second World War. So he's pushing this very hard. He's cleaning out and killing people left, right, and center. And he creates the first mass formation. That is mass formation, semi-hypnotic. So people will actually admit to crimes with inside the party or whatever, which will lead to their death sentence as very rapidly, maybe the next day even. They will admit to these crimes, which they have not done, but they are in such a state of fear, and the whole setup is the same that will be used with a little tweak later on by the Nazis to create their propaganda. And a little bit later on, the COVID, just a couple of years ago. Same recipe, same triggers, same modus operandi. It is exactly the same. But this time when Stalin does it, it actually occurs like organically. But the observators, the oligarchy have of course, their people, in place. They they really see this from an objective perspective. They see this and they discover the psychological effects. And of course, they take that knowledge and keep it for themselves to be used in the propaganda machinery to control the population, to drive the agenda of the banksters / oligarchy in a certain direction by making people more sheeple than ever.
Have a nice evening first. Second, I have quite a problem to understand you. I don't know. It's it's the language barrier, or you're just talking nonsense. So I don't know. What do you want to say with your statement? Do you want to say there's an organization or something who's fighting against the people, or what do you try to tell us here in this space?
The essence of it, my dear Eric, if you want to listen to it, is that the modus operandi of the banksters oligarchy includes the nefarious false flags, which are false flags, and those are created to bring us in a state of fear or other feeling that will lead the large part of the population in a certain way.
But we don't live.
That will benefit the corporations, as in the military industrial complex, etc., etc.
Sure. But there are no oligarchies or something. We don't live in
Are there no oligarchies? Well, I know a few of them.
Wait, Eric, you're saying there's no oligarchies?
Oh,
Bye bye now. Bye bye now. I
no,
didn't do that.
no, 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 no. Did he jump out by himself or did you boot him, Tish? You don't need to boot him. I can.
No, I didn't. I wanted to argue with him, but he left.
I don't know. You know, it's okay to question. It's okay to question. We need to be questioned.
Yeah, he was trolling. He was trolling, man.
Yeah, I know that, but you know, I'm pretty used to that. So I will answer politely and see where it will take us. That's okay. Even
Ooh, that's a good next song. We should do one that's called The Troll Hunter.
yeah.
Mat
Oh,
Bombadil.
I like it, John. That's good. The troll hunter.
I like the trolls. I find it very good that they try. But
In Mat Bombadil and shill rhyme, right? So that'd be a good hook verse. If you think you're gonna shill, Mat Bombadil.
that would be beautiful, wouldn't it?
Oh, John, that's so good.
Yeah, we should
Well,
have a separate space for that when we can actually write, another song. Could be fun.
that's actually a great idea. We have to remember what John just said because that was actually perfect.
John, so take your pen and paper and take down the lyrics, or what?
Well, we're recorded, so I'll go back. I'll
Okay,
go
yeah.
back and jot it all down. I'll get it. No worries.
I had something also, but I'm gonna write it down, and it would go like Mott Mott Bombadil would give every troll a pill.
That would be good. A purple pill, maybe.
Love it,
Exactly.
Peter. Love it.
It can be a lot of different pills. maybe maybe some guys need the pill that you take. Yeah, you know where.
Yeah, we know where.
Maybe they need to take the red pill, right?
Or the other blue pill.
How about
Brought to you by Pfizer.
the white pill brought to you by Pfizer?
for the wee men with the little mustaches out there who need the other blue pill. Hey, what does a red pill and a blue pill make?
A
A purple
purple
pill.
pill. Nice. Very good.
Yeah. Nexium, brought to you by AstraZeneca.
Yeah, we should have info breaks like you just did, Jan.
Right, and this is in no way, shape, or form promoting any of these horrible allopathic companies at all whatsoever. Disclaimer.
Now, so actually, on that long story about Stalin is actually the answer to your question, because mass formation is the tool that is used. And if we want to pinpoint it to one moment in time, as you said, when are the moments where this is, stepping over for this banksters oligarchy? I would say that is the moment, because without
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I guess just to clarify why I'm asking, um, one thing that you do a really good job of, Matt, and one thing I have to just say to you, thank you for doing it in a way that's approachable for, you know, the general population, I should say, is because one thing I've noticed that's been a real hindrance for some people, well, quite a few people waking up, is just the separation of the military versus the civilian population, let's say. Um, unless you look into it, unless you know a little bit of history is one thing, but also I mean, military operations altogether is a completely different beast, right? And then you have coding, and then ciphering, and then you have the theater aspect of military operations, which, you know, may or may not utilize the media, depending on what side they're on. You know, which is just simply known as the theater of war, right? And who is then really running, you know, the command operations. So the key that I'm trying to kind of, you know, pose here as you know, help for anyone to better grasp a lot of the things that are going on and how the military industrial complex has used not only the military and weaponized it against the people, but essentially the military is at war within itself. And when I say that, I mean the military, you know, control arm, which is the industrial complex, you know, done through the Pentagon of sorts, you know, and a lot of these, you know, companies that are contracted through, you know, CIA and other elements. I mean, this is the depth of it. This creates the layers, right? So military contracts through the contracting companies, which were made up once of former military in a lot of cases, you know, it's not necessarily that they're bad. It's just what it becomes, how the industrial complex uses them then as a pawn, right? So it's so deep on that level itself, and then you have the infighting element almost. Like if you think of, you know, just the military as a, like, look at it as like a space, right? And the infighting that's going on within that space, it's the men and women who are serving, who've been weaponized, right? They've been MK Ultra, they've been super soldier programmed, break down and build up through, you know, the military sort of controlling arm mechanism of, we want you to not ask questions, just do as you're told. And then you learn our coding, right? Learn our ciphering, learn our code of conduct. And then that creates the divide naturally within the civilian population. So how do we bridge that gap is ultimately what I'm trying to get to, because, you know, if we can have, let's say, a hostile takeover from within, what does that really look like, and what does that really mean? So if we're going to have a militarized event in a frontal sort of awareness approach, such as a war, right, or a bombing or something like that, it would create a silent sort of effect. And this is why we have irregular warfare. And side note too, and I'll throw that up in the purple pill right now. I posted a link in the purple pill for everybody. You know, I posted something along the lines of irregular warfare, and the whole point of it was to, you know, kind of show everybody who doesn't know much about, you know, war, or how, you know, soldiers kind of transition from one thing to another, or what's taking place internally. You know, there's 3 videos in there that Sean Ryan did, which, I mean, the people that he has interviewed are pretty absolutely incredible. And not to mention the topics that they've actually broke down and talked about. I'm fairly shocked. But he was once, you know, CIA, he was SEAL, so he knows the military aspect as well. But they do a really good job in those 3 videos of breaking certain elements down in modern time throughout the last 20 years as well. Dealing with Blackwater, there's Eric Prince in there, Kash Patel. We all know who he was. I mean, he was, you know,
Yeah.
D&I. So, between him, and then, obviously Joe Kent now, who is running for Congress, but his incredible story and what, he's one of the Gold Star families. He's a survivor himself. Unfortunately, his spouse did not. So, there's really, really good 3 videos. I just wanted to highlight that may help everybody kind of further, see the picture. But, did you get where I'm going, Matt? Like, how do we bridge that gap in a way that we can, sort of educate? Like, you see the, 55 or 55. Like, what does that mean? Do people really know that, like that's a code, like that's actually like transmitting code, right? In radio. So, I mean, these are things that we assume people are aware of.
Yeah, but we could simplify it down to one question. What if the military-industrial complex instead went to be the agricultural humanitarian complex? With all the engineering power, with all the manufacturing power, the world would be a very good place, because the engineers are not bad people. They are just doing what they are doing and probably not thinking too much about it, what the consequences will be, and so on.
So specify engineers though. Are you talking about like the Army Corps, or are you talking about engineering as far as engineering an event or a situation?
Well, the military-industrial complex is engineering, high-tech engineering. That's the high end of it. So it's an industrial, as you can hear, industrial. Industrial includes, of course, engineering on a high level. If you can make a fighter jet that can do like March 2, spin around, do all kinds of stuff and so on, for sure. And the drones and, all of these submarines, whatever. If you can do all of that stuff, if the purpose was instead to don't kill people, feed people instead, it is not harder than that. All the brain power is there. It's just a setup of the heart, more or less.
Yeah, and Matt, I want to add something real quick too. I do come from a little bit of an engineering background, and I just want to explain to people real quick that when we hear the term engineer, we're not talking about a train conductor. Okay, we're talking about engineering. There's a process that it's all about processes. So it's all about development stages, implementation, catastrophic events, cataclysmic events, and then failure points, which then is all part of the building process before anything is even created in its entirety. So, for example, if you're building, if you're engineering an item, right? The item, it would be dependent on what it's used in. So if it's, let's say, a device that's, I'm going to just share from my end what I was doing at the time. So like we built devices that sat on light rail trains that rode on the catenary wire to power the trains. And the catenary wire is the overhead electrical wire that would, pass electricity through the trains. Anyways, so we're dealing with a lot of people, mass transit, right? Now, we had to build these things, design these things, but also we had to, have fail points. And it's in part we use, different things built in like preventative maintenance and different things on existing ones and so on and so forth. But we had to create an event where there would be a failure point. Then we'd have to modify, go back in our drawings, right, in our renderings, our 3Ds or AutoCAD 2D, and we'd design different things that would strengthen these aspects. Well, if you take that, that's just like a very tangible thing, right? But, it's the same thing when you have a class of people or a nation. And this is important that I really want to, sort of highlight this in the correct way, and step in, please, if you can add a couple things too. But, when we have engineering elements, anything can be engineered. You can have a war, a situational event, a theatrical, representation of something using actors. I mean, that's essentially what's been gamed out in a lot of cases. So when the military does, they're gamed out sort of things, that's what's done. And so these, it's really important to tie this also into the East India Company, right? Why? Because when you're talking about the industrialization, and really the industrial boom was in the 40s, 50s, that sort of 50s, 60s. But, the industrialization is part of the commercial aspect, part of the commercialization of everything, right? This is what was deeply embedded into the overtake
John,
that took place with the East India Company. Yeah, go ahead.
the military industrial complex starts the year 1600 when the last letter from Elizabeth I is signed on the go ahead, run your private company here outside the crown. Then the military industrial complex starts. That's and it well, it ends in 1874, just when the Constitution is hijacked, just a few years after that. And this East India Company, they run on the maritime law, on the admiralty law, which is the old Viking seafarer law through the Hansa cities. The nations, there are no nations in the aspect that we think a nation is, or that we are taught by the authorities. We have been social engineered to think that social engineering is out of Mordor. That is the follow-up on Axel Oxenstierna's Stockholm's bureaucracy. Social engineering as a method, actually a method to control people and what they are thinking is, of course.
Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted you to bring up. Thank you so much. So if we look at, in land surveying, another example, so when, the people come out and they map out the land. Those are the land surveyors. So whether they're taking a distance, or if it's in a residential area where you have a grouping of houses together, they'll survey the land to make sure that your lot is mapped out. Anyways, they go off of basis of what is called a 100-year floodplain, and that's not what you necessarily think, because once again, this is all engineered as well. So when you're talking about land, when you're talking about control mechanisms, right? What is the flood that's talked about? Like, we really have to stop for a second and be like, what the hell is going on? Like, I've never seen a flood in my entire life, okay? I've seen them on the news. I've never seen them firsthand. I'm not saying they don't exist, right? Dams break, things happen, natural events, but also man created events. But what I'm saying is, overall, what does this mean? Well, essentially anything could be considered a flood. So every 100 years, isn't it interesting? Isn't it fascinating that going back to the 1600s, at this inception point that you're speaking of, that it seems like things out of another, are the same, just a little bit different, right? It's the same book, different play, or it's the same play out of the same book, just a different name, right? They're going to call it this instead of that, and so that's exactly what's been going on forever, right? And so we look back in even the early 1900s. I mean, there were people, they had electrical devices, like two-wheel things that look like segways or scooters, and they had like unicycles, and they were all powered on batteries, or they were powered on hydrogen. I mean, this is the shit that they've done, and they've hidden this. So if we go back hundreds, if not thousands of years, how long has this been going on? Right? And that's like a big thing to really take into consideration, when we're trying to do preventative things for our future generations.
Matt, you have to go.
False flags. Part of the flood, right?
Yeah, Matt has now to go back to Kane and start from there.
What is the snake, Mott? You tell me. Are we talking about? Is this that big electrical tower that we're talking about?
No, not really. But considering that we have been affecting the rivers, building, straightening out rivers and so on and so forth. Bad geoengineering, bad engineering will cause, at a certain point, if you do FMEA, as engineers do, that's why we are so boring to listen to. And that's also why we are so boring when we analyze things, just as you described it. Failure management engineering analysis. That is something that I've been sitting with for, many times. Let's not get into that. So when you actually change in nature, at a certain point where you have hefty rain, something that you might been able to foresee but consider a small risk when designing the dams. Dams should be all of these hydropower dams and so on and they are removing them right now in many countries where you can find alternative energy sources and so on. They are actually removing them and recreating the rivers or the streams and so forth. So it's a good thing because they are a part of a system, of a natural system to feed the seas with the nutrition coming from different places, and so forth. And of course, you have the natural life with fishes and so on. Back in the day, the people that were sort of depending on fish for survival, and they also had hydropower, but they never did these big dams and so on. They took out a turn of the river to make the hydropower for their mill or whatever, but they didn't stop the big flows because they understood that the fish will go and upstream to make babies and go downstream when grown and so on. So they were dependent on this, and they did not disturb nature that much. So, and we are quite a few more people now, but as said, we are not that many. So it's not a problem, actually, that we are quite a few people now. And that goes back to Birkeland as well, and the fertilizer, which were needed for the oligarchy to increase the world population in a rapid pace to create new debt slaves to keep the system running. So the next big event, Jan, that you could say, it's the Bretton Woods. And then boom, after Bretton Woods, you have I don't know the order there, actually. Is Hiroshima and Nagasaki first? Yes, they are. Oh, I have to check that. Can't remember the dates. They are very close to each other. So you have Bretton Woods and you have Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which will turn the world in a direction. It's, and we are talking about the world. This is all over. But as a big oil tanker, it's a big world, and it doesn't turn as a racehorse or a race car, it doesn't turn that fast, or as a fighter jet, it doesn't turn that fast. So that means that all of these events, but you were looking for one, and I would say the first time of mass formation. Before that, you actually had to rule with force, with brutal force, and that is too expensive. That is one of the things that they understood with the East India Company. The business was not good enough when you had to do it by force. Simple as that. So instead, you will find a deeply entrenched enemy sneaking through the night in the shadows and doing false flag operations and so on. And we have one of them that we could call a false flag, or the mother of the flag revolutions, and that is the IX 53 Operation Boot in Iran. This is when actually it's the MI6 that is, the head of this. This is the mother of all flag revolutions, all color revolutions, call them what you want. That is the first time. So that is also kind of a false flag, discussing this, and this have been going on forever, ever, since 1950, and not forever, but since 1953, in that shape, way, and form. A little bit updated now and again. And of course, social media have been weaponized doing exactly that, instead of the dying mainstream media. Talking about the printing press then. Gutenberg, 1453, I think. So I think it's a pretty good answer to the question where we have the pivot point. That is in the trials during the communist era, during Stalin's cleaning operation, or whatever you want to call it. It's a nefarious one, but that one will actually lead to that the Russians will be Russia will be able to defeat the Third Reich project. That one, epically enough, by manufacturing the T-34 tanks exactly in the areas where we have the Ukraine conflict now, the special military operation. And those two regions that refused the coup d'etat of 2014, the Maidan, the Newland and Company 1. Those are the same regions where they manufacture this under very hard conditions. But they managed to make enough of them. They managed to man them. That was pretty good design, actually. It worked perfectly for the purpose. And in the battle of, and believe it or not, Kursk, as we had the other day, they will show their ability, and also in the numbers. And from the Battle of Kursk, the dominoes will just fall towards Berlin. So that is quite epic as well. And those tanks are manufactured in Donetsk and Lugansk. That's something to think about, isn't it? Back in the day. So you might think what you want about Stalin, but he pretty much knew the oligarchy. He knew what was coming, and he prepared. And that probably changed, that changed world history and the direction that we are taking. And now we can see something even bigger this time with the BRICS and with Russia in lead. And China, they are, in that perspective, China is like, don't get mad, get even. Because of, they've been hit so hard by the opium and by the consequences of that for hundreds and hundreds of years. So
Matt, and that's, I just want to add something about, just kind of this historical sort of aspect of things, just the importance, once again, going forward, we can see now the history, right, has changed. So you brought up Stalin, and the thing to think about from that is, has any of us met him? If you can't say no, then I would like to meet you. Because, I mean, the thing of it is, like, I've never met Stalin. I've read what I know about him, right? But unless you know something firsthand, how do we truly, truly know? And we can only go off of what we do know with the information at hand. And that's why it's so important, like, the level of us to hand down all of these things, these bits of wisdom and knowledge to our future generations, to our children, but do it in a way that's smart, that makes sense. A long time ago, they used to pass down books. They used to pass down family Bibles. They used to pass down a lot of things that would be inherited. Right? We've lost touch with what inheritance is, and we attached them to a will, and it's just been overtaken by the fast-paced sort of way of life. And so, if we print things out, if we organize, if we get things, but not just print things out, but make sure, like, if we're going to print out important things that we want to last, use our archival type paper, right? Think about these things, acid free, that sort of stuff, because you're going to be preserving these. It's all about preservation of history. It's not so much what the yes, in part, our future will be able to benefit from this, but it's more about the preservation, and they can look back then at certain points and then reflect, right? So I just wanted to add that, because it really is important to, not just print things out, but, do things in a way that's really impactful for, at least our families for the future. And something like that is so small that all it takes then is 100 years from now, when we're all gone, that we'll look back in what was written from today and passed down through time, and they'll be able to combat the things that they're up against, at that point in time.
and that leads us to the amazing Lord of the Rings by Tolkien, and with all his knowledge that he had, his background, bankers, son, fluent in the Nordic languages, working in the intelligence service during the First World War, denied working in it the Second World War for some reason, because it was critical to the banking system and so on and so forth. So he bases his books, his epical books, on, at least in quite a few perspectives, on the Finnish Chavela, which is mouth to mouth in as far back as anybody knows, stories which is collected before the art of storytelling is dead up in the north, way up north. And I think that we will see a new generation of storytellers, because we need to tell the sagas, the stories, to activate our brains to create critical thinking. And as I said many times, I'm going to say it again, just in case we have new listeners, which I think we have quite a few, actually. There's nothing random about the Lord of the Rings coming out to be a real success among the younger generations, which is sort of grown now. But and also, if you look at some of the big players, J.D. Vance, Elon, Peter Thiel, and so on and so forth, they have read the Kabbalah, or at least partly. They have read guaranteed upside down, inside out, left, right, center, the Lord of the Rings, the Iliad, the Odyssey, and all of this. Because that gives them an edge, an understanding of rhetorics, trivium, and so on and so forth. So and that is why we are putting, well, not Putin has also read that. He's very interested in history, actually. You all remember the interview with Tucker Carlson, I hope. And he's actually over the target. So having the ability to understand your opponent or anybody else in a way, or speak in a way that is, getting the thoughts moving using not only the frontal cortex and the snake brain, but using the whole brain. And that is what critical thinking is. It's just common sense, actually, to be frank. But there are methodics to do that, and those we are not learned. The FMEA, with engineering-wise, John, that we were talking about before, that is a method of thinking. That is how to learn how to think, actually. It's a method. And the same method can work the other way around, to learn people how to not think for themselves. So there we go, full circle. And that ended up being our school system, where you are learned not to think. And therefore, of course, a certain part of the population will not fit into that system, and then you drag them down. So then you have the medical industrial complex, or nefarious medical industrial complex. Well, anyways, Tish, we are running over time now. So as promised, I will see if I can find a song that we probably need to play that more than one time. Let's see if I can find it. Why can't I find it?
When you played "The Beds Are Burning" the other day, well, 2 weeks ago, it's in my head for weeks now. I can't get it out of my head.
When he played
because we're living in those times.
And when he played,
I'm sorry, Peter.
Yeah, when he played it last time, I forgot my cigarette on my bed, so it's kind of like
Very good, Peter. That's funny.
Yeah. So I promised you, it's many years since I heard this song, but we were talking about the Vietnam War, the Bay of Tonkin, Gulf Bay, I never remember which is correct, and the Norwegians involved in that, believe it or not. Strange days indeed, but the average age of the Americans that actually died for Kissinger and the military industrial complex playing their nefarious games together with the bankers, of course. They go hand in hand. They are like horse and carriage. So, with that said, without further ado, Paul Hardcastle, 19. Here we go. Let's hope that this works.
In 1965, Vietnam seemed like just another foreign war, but it wasn't. It was different in many ways, and so were those who did the fighting. In World War II, the average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19. 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 19. The heaviest fighting of the past 2 weeks continued today, 25 miles northwest of Saigon. I wasn't really sure what was going on. 19. In Vietnam, the combat soldier typically served a 12-month tour of duty, but was exposed to hostile fire almost every day. 19. 19. In Saigon, a U.S. military spokesman said today more than 700 enemy troops were killed last week in that sensitive border area. Throughout all of South Vietnam, the enemy lost a total of 2,689 soldiers. According to a Veterans Administration study, half of the Vietnam combat veterans suffer from what psychiatrists call post-traumatic stress disorder. Many vets complain of alienation, rage, or guilt. Some succumb to suicidal thoughts. 8 to 10 years after coming home, almost 800,000 men are still fighting the Vietnam War. None of them received the hero's welcome. Purple Heart. Saigon. Purple Heart. Saigon. Wasn't really sure what was going on.
Very nice, Mott. What is the name of that song? we lost Mott.
I put it in the pill. It's let's
Oh, thank you, Peter. Thank you.
let's see what it was. It was
We lost John too,
oh
Tisha.
Yeah, he must have dropped
Oh,
gone because I
okay.
couldn't hear it. Yeah.
Okay.
let's see where I find it. It was
I've never heard it before, Peter. I've never heard that.
I think it was first time I also heard it now.
No, Peter.
It makes me want to write a song.
It's
a classic.
from the 80.
Ja, jag vet. 1985 tror jag.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's kind of old. Okay.
I know. I kind of wanted to throw on my roller skates and my my astronaut tinfoil suit and start jamming around.
Skating around. Skating around at roller rink with a the big ball in the middle. Yes, I did roller skate. Mott, are you still with us? He's radio silent.
Yeah. I put it in the purple pill, so the link to the song is there. But I think it's one of those. It's like a boring history lesson with some really good clinky plonky 80s music. So it actually went to the billboards. It was quite in the when the synthesizer era came by, so to speak. So it's a classic, actually, according to that crew, so to speak. So
Very cool. Like 99 Luft Balloons.
yeah,
Wasn't that about war?
yeah. There are actually quite a few songs that brings up this and the PTSD and so forth. We will take another one the next space. I have one left that is a mega hit that you probably heard, but when you see the lyrics and you get the background to it, it will mean something totally different than the success that song had. I would say many times we misinterpret what is said, what is sung, what is written, because we don't have the context of it. And that is what the Prussian school is about. Do not see cross tabulations or context. Just take this information and then you go snake brain. That is what it's all about. With that said, Tish, John, famous last words.
Yes.
Secretary.
Famous last words. Anybody?
Yeah. I think we are done today. I think we digged into the false flags and so on. We did not talk so much about 9/11 because there's been like 3,000 spaces on 9/11. So I think we could, what's better to talk a little bit about the other ones to give some context to all the 9/11 information that is floating out there right now, to see the modus operandi, and also to talk about the ordinary flag, not the false flag, the flag or the color revolutions, which is pretty much the same crew, but with let's call it somewhat less consequences. But sometimes many people have died, hundreds of thousands. So it's yet again unnecessary suffering all over the place. Secretary, thank you. John Matthews, sir, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Tisha, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mott,
you,
for
guys.
sharing all your information. Remember, guys, war is a racket.
Yeah, and I want to add something quick before we sign off too. Just if you take anything away from 9/11, take away not only what you were told about it and what you continue to learn about it, but also the slogan behind it. And I hate to call it a slogan, but just for, conversational sake. So never forget. There was a lot involved with 9/11 that we're all becoming more familiar with and aware with. And apply that to all false flags. Apply that to all catastrophic events. Never forget. When these things come about and you hear things looming down the pipeline, look elsewhere. Don't focus on the talking heads and the media narrative, but never forget what comes about, and don't let it consume you with fear. The more you remove yourself from the element of the control factor, which is whatever they're trying to create, the better off you're going to be in not just grounding yourself, but just being able to prepare yourself by seeing the other outlying elements. So always, kind of step back and look at other things as well, but never forget any of these moments. It helps with the bigger picture, but it also puts a lot into perspective when you remember these big catastrophic events, not just the tragedies behind them, but the truth that comes out after it. I think it's really, really important. It's not so much what we were taught in the basis of general 101s of things, but it's the truth that comes out after it, and that's going to help us prevent ourselves from any further catastrophes going forward. So, thank you guys. I appreciate the space once again. Phenomenal.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Go ahead, Mott. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, since we are talking about fear so much, I would say, and we have talked a lot about nukes and all of this. As we all know, Bob Marley, he knew quite a lot about a whole lot of stuff, didn't he? And I think we just will round it. We'll do one more song.
Yay!
I love it. Good closing, Matt. Thank you guys again. Mrs. Secretary, thank you so much. And Tish and Matt, as always, and all the speakers. Thank you guys.
Yes, thank you all so very much for all the information. Love you guys. Now hit it, Mott.
I will. So this is Bombadil Radio.
All pirates, yes, they rob I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing for freedom? Is all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom is all I ever had. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop at the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Yes, some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? Is all I ever had. Redemption songs, all I ever had. Redemption songs, these songs of freedom, songs of freedom.
Beautiful. Nobody says it better than Bob Marley. See you next Thursday, guys. We love you. God bless.
God bless. Have no fear for atomic energy and free your mind. Boom. Thank you.
Boom. Thank you.